Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh. And I do so in the name of His begotten Son, who the word ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, which is His true name is Yahweh Shah. This is Soldier Tazawam from Sakari. And today, I want to prove that the Mosaic laws are still in effect. But first, I want to get into. But before I prove that we still, the laws are still in effect, first I want to disprove the scriptures that Christians will use to try to say that the laws are done away with. And the first scripture I want to get into is Romans chapter 4. Paul's epistles. Christians love good old Paul. So let's get into it. This is Romans chapter 4, verse 13. Clearly, in the NLT, Salakia. Clearly, God's promise to give the whole earth to Abraham and his descendants was based not on his obedience to God's law, but on a right relationship with Salakia, with God that comes by faith. Salakia. So they be like, see, the Most High. I keep. Yeah, they'll be like, see, they'll look at this and see that we don't really got to keep the laws. We don't really got to keep the law to even get into the kingdom or to get into the kingdom. We just got to have faith. This is how they be like, this is how you serve God or want to worship God is by only having faith. If God's promise is only for those who obey the law, then faith is not necessary and the promise is pointless. For the law always brings punishment on those who try to obey it. The only way to avoid breaking the law is to have no law to break. Alright, so verse 16. So the promise is received by faith. It is given as a free gift. And we are all certain to receive it. Whether or not we live according to the law of Moses, if we have faith like Abraham's, for Abraham is the father of all who believe. Alright, so they be like, so they take Romans 4, 14 to 16, but like, see, you really got to keep the law. You just need to have faith. But in the previous chapter, this is what Paul said. This is Romans chapter 3, verse 31. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yeah, we establish the law. Hold on. So right in Romans chapter 3, verse 31, we see Paul says we establish the law. So like, yeah, and Paul says we establish the law. But then we go to Romans chapter 4, verse 13. We see that he's saying, in Romans chapter 4, verse 13, we see that they say that we don't gotta keep the law, but only have faith. So is Paul a liar, or do Christians be misconstruing what Paul is talking about in Romans chapter 4? And I believe that they are misconstruing what he's talking about. Because one, Paul walked with Christ, and Christ taught the law. Paul is not going to teach what Christ had taught him, especially during when you read when you get into the book of Romans, we see that when Paul had that dream, he told when Paul had that vision or dream, he told the Most High that about that dream about the clean and unclean. When we just paraphrasing when when God says Paul to eat, and Paul told him, "Not so, Lord. I have eaten anything common and unclean," showing the fact that Paul kept the law. So what Romans 4 verse 13 is talking about is basically getting into that. Paul is basically just saying that no man will be justified by only keeping the law, but by faith. As we know that all righteousness is as filthy rags. That's what Paul is basically getting into in Romans chapter 4, verse 13 to 16. And this is how you and by faith, this is how you worship the Most High. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 11. Verse 6 is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. And how you diligently seek the Most High, and that's by you diligently seek the Most High by keeping those law, statutes, and commandments. Verse 7. By faith Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house. See, we see right here that Noah showed his faith by his works when he made this ark, By the which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. Righteousness which is by faith. See? This is how you please the Most High, is by faith. By your works, of course. Let's go to Romans chapter 6, verse 1. This is Romans chapter 6, verse 1. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer? And we see right here in another epistle of Paul. That's it. Because you see, you got Christians that say we are under grace and faith. We don't got to keep the law. We are under grace and faith. But we see right here that Paul is saying, let's read it again, Romans chapter 6, verse 1. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. I read that again. God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? And I stay in the same chapter. This is another scripture that they'll use. Romans chapter 6, verse 14. For sin shall not have a dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. So they say right here, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. We don't gotta keep the law; we under grace. But we just read in Romans chapter 6, verse 1, that you have to keep the laws. You have to keep the laws of God, even if you're under grace, because we're just under a grace period right now. The so-called Black Hispanics and their American Indians are on the grace period until they get their act right, until they get the shit together. Until Yahushua come back. Because when he come back and your ass is not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, then you're going to die, you know. But right now you're in that grace period, just like you got you just like when you got rent due or a phone bill or a car note, and you tell them that you can't when it's due, you can't make it, and they give you a grace period on when that bill is due. Then you have to make that grace. Then you have to make, then you have to make sure that bill is due by that grace until that grace period is up. Romans chapter 6 or 14. Romans chapter 6 verse 14. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. Now, yeah, like I said, they would use that, but continue reading. What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? God forbid. Know ye not that whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey? Yeah, so basically Paul is asking this question, like, do you not know who you are yielding yourself to obey? His servants ye are, to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death or obedience unto righteousness. But God be thanked that ye were the servants of sin. Keyword, that ye were, but ye have obeyed from the heart that form of doctrine which was delivered you. Being then made free from sin, you became the servants of righteousness, which we know. And I think I said it in my previous videos, that shows that your righteousness, you're shown that you're righteous by keeping the laws. You know? The main point is showing how Romans chapter 6 verse 14 doesn't show that the law, that you don't have to keep the law because you're under grace. As we see in verse 15, that you still have to keep the law even though you're under grace. Let's get John 5. It's 1 through. Yeah. Another scripture they would use is, when they'll go to the book of John chapter 5, to show that and be like, to show that, to say that Christ sent, that they try to say, basically that's what they're saying. They'll go to John 5 and say Christ broke the Sabbath, basically calling the Christ a sinner. Which, one, Christ is not a sinner, and two, the law doesn't tell you that you can't. I get into it. Let me get to the. I'll start at 11. He answered them, he that made me whole, and said unto me, Take up thy bed and walk. Then asked they him, What man is that which said unto thee, Take up thy bed and walk? And he said, and he that was healed was not who it was, for Yahushua had conveyed himself away, and a multitude being in that place. Afterward, Yahushua finding him in the temple and said unto him, Behold, thou art made whole. Sin no more. So we see right here, why would Christ tell him to sin, not to sin no more, you know? If the law was supposed to be done, if he done away with the law. Salaki. That would make no sense. Salaki. But thou, behold, thou art made whole, sin no more, lest the worst thing come unto thee. The man departed and told the Jews that it was Yahushua which made him whole. And therefore did the Jews persecuted him, persecuted Yahushua and sought to slay him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath day. Say they wanted to kill Christ because he healed this man, this brother, on the Sabbath. So they'll go right here and be like, see, Christ had broke the Sabbath, But the law doesn't say that you can't heal on the Sabbath. It says you can't do no servile work, But let's go into Mark chapter 3 to show, because what Christ did wasn't a bad thing, This is Romans chapter 3, verse 4. And he said unto them, Is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath days, or to do evil, to save life or to kill? But they held their peace. Right? Well, this is what Christ was asking the Pharisees, So what Christ did, when Christ healed that brother, he did good, Basically, he kept the law, He showed love to his brother, Leviticus. He showed love to his neighbor. So ultimately, he kept the law. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 through 9. It's another scripture they will use. It's Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is a gift of God. Verse 9. Not of works, lest any man should boast. It's Matthew chapter 23, verse 23. This is Matthew chapter 23, verse 23. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought ye have done, and not to leave the other undone. All right, so basically, this is Christ getting on the Pharisees, because the Pharisees were always, they were always pushing the law. They had no faith, So when you go back into Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 through 9, for by grace are ye saved through faith, and not that of yourselves. It is a gift of the God. It is the gift of Yahweh. And that not of yourselves, basically, just like with the Pharisees boasted themselves because they kept the law. That's why I say it's not of yourselves, because one, our righteousness is as filthy rags. So it doesn't matter how good we keep the law, we still have so much sin that that is still on our backs, to say. It doesn't matter how it doesn't matter how good we keep the law. All righteousness is still as filthy rags because we be breaking them for so long. We committed things, especially worthy of death. So-called Black Hispanics and Native American Indians have committed so many things that is worthy of death, like adultery, idolatry, and murdering our own brothers. Our own people. So that's what Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 through 9 is saying. You know? We're not saved by us keeping the law, statutes, commandments. We're saved by faith and grace. Let's get James. But just because we saved by faith and grace doesn't mean we not to keep the law, statutes, commandments. We have to do both. We have to keep the law, statutes, commandments of the Most High God and the faith, and have faith. And Yahweh Shah, Yahweh. Yahweh Shah and Yahweh. Damn, I can't find James. The hell? Tripping. It's lucky. This is James chapter 2, verse 17. Start at 14. What doeth it profit, my brother, though a man say he have faith and have not works, can faith save him? If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto them, depart in peace, be ye warmed and filled, notwithstanding ye give them not those things which are needful to the body, what doeth it profit? Right. So if you telling a brother or sister be warm and you don't give them things that's gonna keep them warm like a jacket or a blanket, what's the need of what's the point of you saying to be warm if you're not gonna give those things that's gonna keep them warm? That's how it works without faith. So we get into it. Even so, faith, if it have not works, is dead being alone. Right. That's the same thing with faith without works. A brother or sister can say they have faith in God. Yeah, a brother or sister can say they have faith in God. But how you showing your faith without showing? How you showing your faith and you not doing those things? The things that's showing how you have faith in the Most High, And that's like me saying I got faith that I'll be the best kickboxer or grappling wrestler in the world without putting in the works to show that I have faith that I'll be on that high of a level. Right? Verse 18. Yeah, a man may say, thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. You see? Let's jump to verse 20. But wilt thou know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead? Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he had offered Isaac his son upon the altar? Seest thou how faith wrought with his works, and by works was faith made perfect? See, Abraham showed his faith by his word, when he's about to offer his son as a sacrifice, which is a commandment, you know. Verse 23, and the scripture was fulfilled with safe. Abraham believed God. He had faith in the Most High. As we see, that's how you please the Most High, according to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6 through 7. And it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. Ye see then how that by works a man is justified, and not by faith only. Get one more precept, 2 Esdras. Verse 9 through 7. 9 verse 7. And every one that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith, whereby ye have believed. So that's how you're saved, by your faith in your works. That's how you're going to be saved. Slucky, I forgot to get a precept for James too. Hold on. Slucky, not for John's 5. Oh no, I did. Slucky, I did. All right, so now let's get into a couple scriptures, because I don't want to be too long with it in this little lesson. A couple scriptures that shows that we have to keep the laws of God still. And this is coming out of the mouth of Christ, who Christians, say that is God, and, who Christians follow, say that is the Messiah. This is Matthew chapter 4, verse 4. But he answered and said, it is written, men shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. See, Christ himself said, every man lives by listening to the mouth. So Christ is saying that a man will live by keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Now let's get into another scripture. Let's go to Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. See, let's start right here, because Christians would use Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 to say Christ fulfilled the law. He fulfilled all the, that's what he came down to fulfill. He came to die. He died on the cross, and all the laws, statutes, commandments died with him when he died. Died with him when he died on the cross. But that's not what Matthew chapter 5 verse 17 is talking about. Let's go to Acts chapter 3 verse 18. This is Acts chapter 3 verse 18. But those things which God before has shewed by the mouth of all his prophets, that Christ should suffer, he hath so fulfilled. This is what Christ fulfilled. That he should suffer for his people. The Israelites who are the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and American Indians. That's what he fulfilled. Now let's go back to Matthew chapter 5. Verse 18. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, which heaven and earth hasn't passed yet, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled, which all hasn't been fulfilled. Every prophecy that's supposed to come in this Bible has not been fulfilled. Verse 19, whosoever therefore shall break one of the least commandments and shall teach men so, what your Christian pastor in their church what is doing, and those who are teaching, even if you're not a pastor, if you're teaching, in breaking the least commandments, like eating pork, shrimp, crab, lobster, not wearing your fringes, shaving your beard, sleeping with another man's wife, and you sisters that's out here popping coochie, those are one of the least commandments right there, He shall be called least in the kingdom. You'll be called least in the kingdom for doing and teaching these things, saying that you don't have to, have to keep them, saying it's all right, But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. And this is what this is why you see the Israelites out here on the streets, on the highways and byways, on social media, on YouTube. That's why you see them teaching and keeping the law, statutes, commandments, because it's like the brothers and sisters want to be great in the kingdom of heaven, unlike the Christian church who wants to be least in the kingdom. But this is what the to having an that heaven and earth is talking about. This Revelations chapter 21 verse 1. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. Meaning, it's not literally talking about a heaven and the earth. Because according to the scriptures, the earth abideth forever. But this, this is not a literal heaven and earth. This is talking about rulership. And there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, a new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So that's what the new heaven and the new earth is talking about. And one, we're not in rulership right now. So the laws, that shows the fact that the laws are still in effect. Even when we in the kingdom of heaven, the laws will still be in effect anyways. So basically, yeah. Let's go to John chapter 5, verse 46. I'm gonna get this, and then Revelation chapter 22, verse 14 will be my last scripture. This is John chapter 5, verse 46. For had ye believed Moses, ye would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if you believe not his writings, how shall ye believe my words? Right, so this is what Christ is saying. If you don't believe in the writings of Moses, which Moses wrote the law, the law, how would you believe the words that's coming out of Christ's mouth? Let's prove that it was, and Moses wrote, Yeah, Salakia. Now let's prove that how with get a precept for John chapter 5 verse 46. And Salakia, I'm just trying to get my words right. It's Deuteronomy chapter 20, Deuteronomy 18 verse 18. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it up. I will require it of him. Right, and we know that this prophet that in Deuteronomy 18:18 is talking about is Yahweh Shah. So that's what John chapter 5 verse 46 to 47 is talking about. Now I'll get the last scriptures. Salakia. Revelations 22 verse 14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. Alright, so you're blessed if you keep the law, statutes, commandments. And with that, I want to say, I hope this was edifying. And Salakia for, for the pauses what's the word I'm looking for? The stuttering. I always talk fast when I talk, when I talk to people. Salakia for that. I'll try to be better. But, like I said, I hope it was edifying. And with that, I want to say, Yabaraka, Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shah, Shalom.